Good morning, Isaac. Thank you for joining me for this discussion. We are going to spend the next little while talking about all things Africa. Africa is a big continent. We're talking about 54 different countries. And I think Africa's diversity is one of its strengths. At the same time, one of the challenges that we see as a law firm for clients investing or doing business in Africa is the fact that you have 54 different jurisdictions, you have 54 different legal systems, some similarities between them, certainly some regional instruments, and a handful of continent-wide legal instruments. But one of the challenges is, I think, for clients trying to navigate the legal framework in Africa. A recent key development in that regard, of course, is the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Trade under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement started in January. It has protocols that address trades and services, trades and goods. There's a dispute settlement mechanism. Further protocols are going to follow. The investment protocol, certainly in my circles, is the one I hear the most about. I think that will provide some protection for investors going into the continent, might or might not provide a dispute resolution mechanism for investors. But I think at a broad level, it will create more legal certainty for foreign investors going into Africa, more of a continental-wide framework for trade and investment. What are your views on the new agreement and how that's going to come together?
Yeah, look, I think it's fantastic. I think I'm very bullish about AFCFTA and the Continental Free Trade Agreement. I think that, if successful, and I think by all measures it should be, Africa is going to have the largest, free trade agreement, well, so the most comprehensive free trade agreement in the world. I think that's quite something. A couple of points. You talk about the fragmentation. Yes, I mean currently I think statistically, intra-Africa trade is around 12 to 13%. Some say 12, some say 15. Let's say 12, 13%. And that's a problem, right? You need to find ways to trade with each other because that's how you're gonna grow your markets. And also I think for foreign investors, the issues around fragmentation and issues around, the lack of certainty, the issues around, lack of coordination around legal issues is a big problem. I do think that AFCFTA presents a wonderful opportunity for almost a one-stop shop solution for investors, where you can come into a country, you can come into Africa and almost have a regional play or have a continental play if you choose to do so. And at scale or at point of optimization, you need not worry about having to deal with X number of governments. I mean, you still have to deal with governments because you're in people's jurisdictions, but I think that it'll make the conversation a bit easier.
We've covered a lot of ground, but where do you think all of this is headed for the future in terms of opportunities for investors and businesses in the Middle East? Where do you see the future in Africa?
I think currently, especially if you're looking at the UAE where we sit, trade with Africa is around 10%, just after Asia and I believe Europe, if I'm not mistaken about that. I see this number going to close to 40%, right? Because I think that what's happened in the last 10, 15 years hasn't been. It's been deliberate, but it's also been accidental and organic. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think now that you're seeing governments from this region and also governments in Africa being more deliberate and being intentional about this relationship, and with things like AFCFTA, it has nowhere but to go up, right? And I think that's where you're going to see a lot of opportunity, because every single opportunity we've talked about, I think the blueprint exists. What does the future hold for the legal industry? Is arbitration the future? Is Africa going to be the best practice of arbitration globally, or what's the future for the legal space?
Yeah, there's so much we can talk about there. I think when it comes to dispute resolution, international arbitration is important, and it will continue to be important and have of growing importance in an increasingly global economy. I don't want to bore you with the legal technicalities, but one of the reasons arbitration works so well is the New York Convention, which just about every country on earth is a party to. There have been some recent key ratifications of the New York Convention by some African countries, Ethiopia and others. But fundamentally, what the New York Convention says is that if you have an arbitration award from one jurisdiction, it's easily enforceable, subject to a few exceptions in any of these 180 some countries that have ratified the New York Convention. So arbitral awards are much more portable from jurisdiction to jurisdiction than court judgments are. And as a result of that, arbitration has really taken off. I know a lot of African lawyers, and I'm very optimistic about the future of the legal industry in Africa. There's a growing number of very strong, very highly experienced African lawyers in the continent. Isaac, thank you very much for joining us today. We've covered a lot of ground. There's plenty to talk about, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.